The lights inside the small hospital room flickered softly, reflecting against the pale walls. Outside, a thin drizzle tapped against the window like a gentle metronome, a reminder of how fragile and fleeting time could be. On the bed lay 16-year-old Emily Dawson, her frail body wrapped in white sheets, her breath shallow, her eyes tired yet strangely luminous. She had been battling a rare form of leukemia for nearly 3 years, and though the doctors had done everything they could, everyone knew the truth: Emily didn't have much time left. But even in the shadow of death, there was a fire within her, a fire that refused to go out quietly. Emily wasn't just another patient fighting a losing battle. She was a singer. From the time she could walk, she would sing to the radio, to her parents, to the birds outside her window. Her voice had once filled school auditoriums and church halls, bringing people to their feet. But cancer had stolen much from her: her hair, her strength, her ability to run and dance like other girls her age. Still, it had not stolen her voice. That was the one gift she still held onto with trembling hands. Her mother, Grace, sat beside her bed, clutching Emily's hand as though holding it tighter could somehow anchor her daughter to the earth. Grace's eyes were swollen from crying, but she smiled whenever Emily looked at her. Emily's father, Mark, stood near the window, staring out at the gray sky, his shoulders heavy with grief he could not speak. Their little girl was slipping away, and nothing in the world could stop it. That evening, Emily made a request that surprised them all. "Mom, Dad," her voice was a whisper, so soft they had to lean close to hear. "I want to sing, one last time." Grace shook her head gently, her lips trembling. "Sweetheart, you need your rest." But Emily squeezed her hand weakly, her eyes glistening with determination. "Please, just one more song. Not just for me, for everyone. I want to leave something behind." Mark turned from the window, his throat tightening. "Emily, we don't need you to sing for us. We already know how beautiful you are." But Emily smiled faintly, a smile that carried both sorrow and courage. "Dad, I want the world to hear it. I want them to remember me, not as a sick girl in a hospital bed, but as someone who loved life enough to sing even at the end." Her parents exchanged a long glance, their hearts breaking. And then Grace nodded. "Okay, baby, if that's what you want, we'll make it happen." Within hours, word spread. Emily's story had already touched many: nurses, doctors, neighbors, and friends who had watched her battle illness with unshakable grace. When her wish became known, a small team gathered in her hospital room. A nurse brought a microphone and a modest speaker. A local videographer volunteered his camera. A doctor made sure Emily was strong enough to sing without pushing herself too far. When they were ready, Emily sat up against her pillows, frail yet radiant in the glow of the camera light. Her mother brushed her daughter's thin hair back from her face, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "We're right here with you." And then the room fell silent. Emily closed her eyes. For a long moment, nothing happened, just the sound of her labored breathing, the faint hum of medical machines. And then she began to sing. Her voice was delicate, almost breaking at first, like a candle flame flickering in the wind. But as the notes rose, something extraordinary happened. Strength seemed to return to her, as though her spirit refused to let her body hold it back any longer. Her voice filled the room, raw and hauntingly beautiful, weaving through the air like threads of light in the darkness. The song wasn't one that anyone recognized. It wasn't from the radio or a church hymn. It was Emily's own song, written during long nights when she lay awake in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what tomorrow would bring. "Don't cry for me when I am gone. I'm only leaving for a while. The love we shared, it lingers on. It will carry you through every mile. I've seen the stars beyond the night. I've felt the warmth beyond the pain. And when you think you've lost my light, just listen, I'll be there again." By the second verse, tears streamed down Grace's cheeks. Mark stood frozen, his fists clenched, fighting back sobs. Nurses in the hallway stopped to listen. The videographer, who had come to simply record, found his vision blurred through the lens as tears welled up in his eyes. But Emily kept singing. Her voice cracked, her chest heaved, but she didn't stop. She poured everything she had left into that song: her fear, her hope, her gratitude, her love. It was not just a goodbye, it was a gift. When the final note faded, the silence that followed was so deep it felt holy. And then Grace threw her arms around her daughter, sobbing into her shoulder. Mark walked to the bed, pressing his forehead against Emily's fragile hand. Emily smiled weakly, tears shining on her own cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now I can rest." That night, Emily closed her eyes and drifted into sleep, her breathing slowing as her parents held her. And by morning, she was gone. But her song was not. The videographer who had recorded the performance uploaded it to social media with her family's blessing. He titled it simply, "Dying Girl's Final Song." Within hours, thousands of people watched it. Within days, millions had. Across the world, people who had never met Emily were weeping at their screens, clutching tissues, replaying the video over and over again. Her voice touched something universal: grief, hope, and the bittersweet beauty of life. Celebrities shared it, choirs sang it, strangers recorded covers of it in their own languages. The song became more than Emily's farewell, it became a message of comfort to anyone who had ever lost someone they loved. Letters poured in from all over the globe. Parents who had lost children wrote to Grace and Mark, telling them that Emily's voice gave them strength. Soldiers overseas wrote that they listened to her song when they felt far from home. Hospitals played it in pediatric wards, telling young patients that a girl named Emily had sung for them too. One letter in particular stood out. It came from a girl in Italy named Sophia, who was also battling leukemia. She wrote, "When I heard Emily's song, I felt less alone. If she could sing through her pain, maybe I can too." Grace read that letter aloud in the quiet of Emily's room, her tears falling freely. Mark stood beside her, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Our baby, she's still here. She's everywhere." Months later, a benefit concert was held in Emily's honor. Choirs from across the country gathered to sing her song. Grace and Mark sat in the front row, holding hands, listening as hundreds of voices filled the auditorium with Emily's melody. By the final chorus, the entire audience was on their feet, singing through their tears. "Don't cry for me when I am gone. I'm only leaving for a while." Emily's parents wept openly, but their grief was no longer just sorrow. It was pride. Their daughter had left the world far too soon, but she had left it with a gift that would live on long after her body was gone. Years passed, but Emily's song never faded. It was sung at funerals, at graduations, at weddings where a bride wanted to honor a parent who couldn't be there. It was played on radios, translated into languages Emily herself had never spoken. And every time it was sung, people remembered the girl who, in the face of death, chose to sing. Grace often returned to Emily's room, now kept almost exactly as her daughter had left it. On the night of Emily's birthday each year, she would sit by the window, play the recording, and let her daughter's voice fill the house again. Mark would join her, his arm around her shoulders, and together they would listen in silence. One evening, Grace whispered as the song ended, "You wanted the world to remember you, Emily. And they do. You're everywhere now." And somewhere, in a way they couldn't see or explain, it felt as though Emily was smiling back. Because sometimes, the most powerful legacies are not carved in stone or written in history books. Sometimes, they are carried in a single voice, trembling yet brave, that dares to sing one last time. And in that song, the world found both heartbreak and healing. Emily may have left this earth, but she had left it singing. And because of her, millions of hearts learned that even in the face of death, love and music could live forever.